Okay. I'd like to call this special meeting on June 12th to order for the Great Island Advisory Committee. It's 7:05. And first, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I know that we've had a lot of meetings throughout this process, and I really appreciate all of your time. We're all volunteers here, and your work is really, really, really appreciated. So thank you. And thank you to 79 for taping this, and I'm sure the members that aren't here will appreciate being able to watch the video. So we don't have a remote option this evening due to staff unavailability, but I want to thank Bruce. He met with Jen Treneski, our town administrator, this week, and spent fair amount of time getting up to speed. So he will be our new tech person. And any GIAC only meeting, we will try to add a Zoom, and we most likely we will meet by Zoom. We won't have a hybrid. So we'll continue to have a hybrid with Reed Hildebrand. Reed has been doing the Zoom because it's if you're uploading materials, it's a little more complicated. So we'll continue with that model. But when we're meeting just us, we'll, hopefully Bruce or Jim is also very good at this. Our next regular meeting is June 25th. So that will be with Reed. That will be hybrid. And our next GIAC meeting will be next Wednesday at 6:30, and Bruce will be running that one. Tonight's agenda includes the beginning of our event policy discussion. So there's no draft yet. This is just an open conversation this evening to help us identify priorities and take next steps. With that, I will open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment? Sure.
I've done this before, but.
So you have like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I have less.
Less, and just give us your name and your address, please.
I'm Sybil Stewart.
Okay. Oh, would you come up here just for the camera?
I'm a real novice at this, so. I'm just
yeah, there you go.
a Darien citizen, and I live at 25 Old Farm Road in Tokenique,
Okay.
and I'm somewhat new to the town, 11 years. And I know you all have done a huge amount of work on this, which is really incredibly commendable. I just get worried about the environmental issues. And when I heard that it was the event policy that was being discussed tonight, I thought I just have to say my 2 cents, which is that I worry about those 2-lane roads and 300 people coming to events, coming and going late at night. So I would hope that it would work out financially and for the whole plan to have things that would be from dusk to sunset only, if possible. And then my other feeling is just about less development on the property, because things are so rare here in this town and in this Fairfield County. And I would just be heartbroken for our children's children not to have nature to walk around in and just free space. So I don't want to go any longer.
No,
I'm blushing already.
No, you're not blushing, but tell me your name again.
Sabelle, S-A-B-E-L-E.
S-A-B-E-L-E. And your last name?
S-T-E-U-E-R-T.
Thanks. Okay, next item up is to get an update from Ed
Is there
Genta.
anyone else who wants to speak?
Oh, is there anybody else? I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm reticent to speak, but I might as well.
If I did it,
Not that
you would do
reticent.
it.
Yeah, I speak. I feel compelled. My mom's dying, so she can't make it. She tried to make it. William Castell, 35 Contaminant Road, Darien, Connecticut. There seems to be this weird confusion I'm hearing through the network about all these chairs and tables being ordered for $100,000. That has been like not, I don't understand it. It seems to be creating great confusion in my circles. So, just for the record, that's all I gotta say.
Thanks, William. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? No. Okay, there's nobody else in the room. Okay, Ed, this is a big milestone for us, 23A. Give us an update.
Try this all over again. Okay. Just a quick recap of where we are right now. After the settlements and the lawsuits were put aside, we're given direction to work with the contractor. I met with them again to get started on 23A. So the contractor is willing to hold his price, the original contract, which is incredible for 9 months. We're looking to start on Monday, and that would be the 16th of June. We're looking at a possible 9-month schedule, and that is winter weather dependent. We'll be able to do some things through the winter, and some things we will not be able to do. We'll be doing probably spring planting anyway, so we're looking at maybe April, May of next year as we're wrapping the things up to close the project out. Our work hours currently are looking at 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Monday through Friday. They had asked about Saturday work. I told them that once we had started, we would consider non-intrusive Saturday work, whether it's if they're placing stone or mixing concrete, and they're off the beaten path and people can get onto the island without any issues, safety issues. I would consider it. We'll see how they do first. Access to Great Island during this project is going to be only after 4 p.m. on weekdays and all day Saturdays and Sundays like it is now. We have placed 2 VMS down. Those are the variable message signs, one at the Great Island Gate and one at the Pear Tree Point Beach to notify folks of those closures. More to come as we start the project, but contractor is looking forward to start to mobilize next week and get in there and start to do his work. If folks have any questions?
And then, are there particular holidays though that the construction people won't be working, so that would also then be available for residents to then access the island? If it's in essence, after they're done each day on the weekends, because they won't be working there, and then any other particular holiday when they're not working, correct?
So the contract stipulates that there's no work to be done during holidays that are observed by the town.
Okay.
At which time we'll treat those days as if they are Saturday or Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
The when it was originally bid and awarded prior to the delays that were not your delays, just delays that were caused by others, but wasn't it like a 4 to 5 month project?
4 to 6, and that was one of the reasons that we didn't get a lot of bidders the first time, is that we squeezed the schedule so tight, and we got 0 bidders. I extended that out to over 120 days. I have the contract now at 180 days, but with the winter time, I can't guarantee those days as work days. So I'm thinking we're going to be around 9 months, and only because during the winter we can't do much work out there, and we do have spring planting that's going to take us into the springtime. So if you do the math right now, it's about 8 to 9 months.
So if everything's done except for the planting, we can revisit the access?
Absolutely. That we talked about that with the contractor. Get us to a point where it's safe and you're pulling out for whatever reason, or the work that you're doing is off to the side and the road and the sidewalks are open. We'll open it up to pedestrian traffic as often as we possibly can, and that's our
Fantastic.
goal.
That's great. Thanks.
Can you talk about emergency access? I know some people were wondering about the tenant and was that changing anything, requiring us to do more than we normally would?
We need to keep that roadway accessible for the fire department and ambulance to get down to the boat ramp. So the coordination with the contractor is we need to keep that driveway open while he works on the first phase, which is to the north side of the road, which is cutting in the roadway. cutting in for the drainage, putting in the walls and lights and so on. So he'll work on the north side, leaving the driveway where it is right now. Then he's going to come back and open up the north section and work on the existing portion, right, rip that out and put the new section, but always leaving access to the island for emergency services and our tenant, for however long they stay. So they have access. The tenant has been notified. Fire, ambulance, police have been notified and will be notified again as we go through this process.
And I think we should notify the owner of the gatehouse. Yeah, we should do that.
I thought it was empty.
No, that could be inhabited soon, so.
Any other
Any
questions?
other questions for Ed on this?
And I had asked Monica if during this process, if I could use one of you folks, and Dan was volunteered. So he's gonna join us on the job out there. The more eyes that we have on a regular basis is gonna help me. I just don't have the staff to be there all the time, and whatever Dan can provide, especially with his background, is going to be invaluable. So he'll be working with us on this also.
Yeah, big thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I have to take half the blame.
Any vacation time has to be approved, just. Any other questions?
No? Okay. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Ed. Okay, on the benches and chairs, I want to thank the RTM for taking this item up on very short notice at their June 9th meeting. We really appreciate their willingness to act on this ahead of their summer break, which is in July and August. So the RTM approved an appropriation of up to $100,000 for 16 benches, 16 tables with umbrellas, and 48 chairs to be installed on Great Island, with the goal of having that happen sometime this summer. So Reed Hildebrand is working on providing specific furniture options for us and estimates, and the plan is to have those available for us to discuss at our next meeting. So again, a big thank you to the RTM. This is an item that we would make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen would weigh in on it, and then it would go to the Board of Finance for their voice. So it's a process that normally ends with the RTM, but because the RTM is on vacation, or I shouldn't say that, RTM does not meet in July and August. This was a way to keep this project moving. So again, big appreciation to them for that. And any questions on that?
There was some discussion during the RTM about 19 versus 16 benches.
Yeah, 16 is the number that takes into account, there were some that were initially placed in a FEMA flood zone, which we could do, but we are, I think at this point, the goal is to get some benches out there to provide rest.
So
for
that, those
people.
three were taken out of the count then, and we're at
Yes.
16, gotcha.
Yep.
And are we going to discuss tonight or some other night how many we actually want to purchase on the first round?
I think that should be next, yeah,
Okay.
let's look at the, discuss that next week. Okay?
Monica, do we expect that they're gonna be anchored in the ground, or no?
No, I think that initially, the idea is to put these where people will be able to take a break, but with the eye that, you know, if we have a coastal path and we, you know, decide that a bench would work really well there, we want to be able to move them.
Okay. But if we're just placing them, then in
There will
theory,
be-
residents can move them around.
I think Ed will,
and will move them around.
I think they'll be secured some
Well, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying.
chain
yes,
or
yes.
not anchored, like bolted in, but
Right.
so they can't be moved.
Yeah, there won't be a concrete pad or any type of footing, but there may be something that we can chain it to, if you will, so it can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But stay in that localized area.
Right.
Because the furniture at the beach gets moved
Yes.
around
Yeah.
quite a bit and ends up in some strange places sometimes. So, even though it's very heavy, and it's surprising to me it gets moved, but sometimes they do get moved.
Well, we
So that-
wanna, yeah.
We just need to think about, especially if we're concerned there's areas we really don't want them to end up in.
Okay, and I think DPW would like to have everything stationary,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, so hopefully we'll have items to take a look at for our next meeting, next week. Okay, so next item is to discuss policy guidelines, and we touched on this a few times, but I think, so tonight isn't about like any specific decisions. I think it's more to give us a framework going forward. So Jeff and team had gathered a lot of information, so you have in front of you the Weed Beach rules and regs.
The whole parks.
A whole parks, a lot of information there to take a look at. So I thought a way to break this up, and if people have a different idea, that's, I'm totally open, is to prioritize, right? Items. So types of events, maximum size, frequency, hours, location on island, parking restrictions, noise restrictions, eligibility to apply, cleanup, deposit, insurance, etc. So I can go through these all, but I thought, and I will go through them for the audience, but I thought it would be good tonight, we have a smaller group, but it's still something that we can do, which is to prioritize of these, I think there's 23, what items we want to address at our next meeting. And between now and then, Jeff and team, I'm not sure if you would like some help on this, but I think my thinking is you would create a matrix and you would have different columns for the different items, and then what our current policies are, whether it's at Highland or at Weed Beach or our Park and Rec or at Waveney. I think Kip is looking into getting more information on Waveney, which has been a little bit difficult. And then what our committee thinks, what are our thoughts? Are the rules and regs elsewhere? Do they pertain to Great Island? Is this, are these even items that are relevant for us? Are they flexible enough, those rules, or should they have more structure, that kind of thing. So dividing it tonight into what we want to take a look at our next meeting, which is next week, and hopefully the folks that aren't here will also weigh in. But I think that, the six of us should be able to get a good understanding of what we want to work on first, and then what we would work on at our next meeting, which I anticipate it will be July 9th. It'll be another Zoom. It'll be Zoom only for just this group to discuss this. So,
Just one thought, not with regard to a particular policy or guideline, but like a overarching matter, is that whatever we come up with here, I think it's important to realize that this is a different space. And the policies that we're looking at for these other parks have been developed over the course of years through trial and error, seeing what works and doesn't work. So I think it's important that whatever these guidelines are, that we make sure that we denote them as these are the initial guidelines, and they're subject to change and amendment as we go along, as opposed to, all right, this is it for the next year or whatever it is, because we may discover rather quickly that whatever we decide here in good faith, some work, some don't. So we should, as a practical matter, as we get going into using the island, that we have the ability, or some entity has the ability, to modify the guidelines on an as-needed basis.
I think that's a great
Absolutely.
point. And the reality is this property, it's great to look at these others, right? And we have to start somewhere, and these are rules and regulations that like Mike said, have been in place and they perform well, right? Otherwise, they would have been adjusted. But it doesn't mean that they work for Great Island, right? Great Island is its own entity, and I'm not suggesting that we copycat this at all. I just think it's a way to get the conversation started. So I made some copies. Most of these, Jeff, I'll give you this one, because it's 2 sheets. Otherwise, it's front and back. Maybe just take a look.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, tonight, we want to decide what we're going to focus on for our meeting next week. And like I said, I think there are 23 of them here. Not all of them are, high priority. Some of them are like insurance requirements. Those are really more that's really a town call. So why don't I read these through, and I'll just go through them all right away, and then we'll go back and decide. So types of events. This would be what kind of events should be allowed. For example, town run, nonprofit, private rental. Maximum size. How many people, how many attendees are appropriate for this site? Frequency. How often can events happen? Per week, per month, per season? Hours. What times of day are appropriate? Should evenings be allowed? Location on the island. Which areas can be used for events and which areas should be kept quiet or preserved? Parking. Parking restrictions. Where is parking allowed? Are there limits per event size? Parking will be a very big discussion, I'm sure. Noise restrictions. Are there decibel limits or restrictions on amplified sound? Eligibility to apply. Who can apply to use the space? Residents, nonprofits, outside groups, cleanup, what's required, who's responsible, deposits, should events require a fee or a refundable deposit, insurance requirements, alcohol, is alcohol allowed, are there certain conditions, safety protocols for emergency response plan, what's needed there, shuttle requirements, should large events require off-site parking with shuttles, rain date flexibility, can organizers request backup dates, program versus private events, should there be different rules for town-sponsored versus private use? How far in advance does somebody have to provide an application? Can historic buildings be used? If so, under what limitations? And that could include the outside of certain buildings, like the main house. Again, amplified sound, microphones, speakers, or music allowed? Should there be a limit on the number of events per season? Environmental, are there staging or equipment limits to protect sensitive areas? Signage and promotion, are temporary signs or directional materials allowed? And then accessibility, how do we ensure ADA compliant access and use? So that's kind of what Jeff and team had come up with for big picture things to consider. So I think that tonight I'd like to at least have 8 to 10 that we can take a look at for next week that we think are the most important.
Can I add one?
I sure can.
The impact of the event on the general public, whether people can still get on the island because of the event or not?
It's like exclusive use, sort of.
Yeah, are they restricted, are they only restricting that area, or are they restricting the entire island from access?
That's in the was it Waveney? The Waveney rules on that came out, like how did they ask that?
Yeah.
That might fold into the discussion of location on the island, because when we start to talk about that, if it's gonna be here, does that mean some other area? But that should definitely be part of, I think, that, breakdown location.
Yeah, but that also feeds into, so, in one of our previous meetings, we talked about how many small events, right? So what if we allowed 100 people on the island, 5 20-person events? That doesn't sound like a lot, right? The island's 60 acres, but then you take out the 15 for the bridal, so now you're down to, 45. And then you think about like 20 different groups. That means that residents that would go for a walk couldn't, access that area. So it kind of goes with what you're saying is what's the impact?
Are you saying that there'd be 5 concurrent events in the same day?
That's
Let's
something
say, for
to,
instance, birthday parties. So if 5 kids, different kids had 5 different birthday parties, they wanted to hold them on Great Island, that could be 5 20-person events or, something like that. And let's say they want to hold them on the beach. We want the beach. Well, that means the other 4 don't get the beach. All those questions are going to come up.
right. So how do you prioritize? I think that goes into, application. Is it first come, first serve? But it doesn't, the 100-person, that's just an example. But yeah, and do we want to use every weekend in the summer do we want to allow events, or do we want to allow, residents to use the island more ad hoc?
On the cumulative events, correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, I think the parks staff uses some discretion on that.
Absolutely.
It's not really, anything I saw was spelled out precisely. So, I would think that you could have maybe 2 birthday parties and a nature walk that would all be in different places, but it's hard to envision, all those contingencies. So I think maybe some general language like Dan suggested of, our aim in all these policies is to not, what's the term they used, hinder the public enjoyment
Right.
of the property, and there may be a situation that would, look like it could fit, but someone, who read the application or discussed with the applicant could say, well, actually you're going to be walking all over the place with a group of 50. And so I think we could certainly parse it as much as we can, but we ought to depend on whoever is going to be the administrator for some of that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, you could say, okay, to a bird walk, right? 50 people, a bird walk. That sounds like a great idea. But I didn't think about they would be walking all over the island, and that, again, I don't think that's a problem, but it's a good point.
Right, so the first box, type of events, that would seem to me like a priority one,
Mhm.
based on what we're saying.
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Remember, like, we need to make this something that we can handle for the next meeting, so let's think about like our top 10.
Yep.
Okay.
I just think the first 4 have to fall into the top 10.
Okay.
I actually agree with that.
I even say that 5,
Yeah, probably true.
because of location, especially if we're gonna have
I'd-
areas that we're like, we're not.
I'd add parking too, unless that's a separate meeting.
Well, we have, I think we have a good idea on what parking
Right.
we'll have for the, at least the foreseeable
I
future.
think this is also it's 100 spaces, whatever, 122, whatever. How much of the existing parking that's open to the
Yeah.
public can be taken up by the event? I think it was
Exactly.
more when we talked
Right.
about it, what we were getting at. It's just
Yeah.
so that you don't have a situation where you have, you see a group and say it's 100 people. So you're gonna say that's probably 50 cars, just
Right.
probably.
Right.
Or all of a sudden, that's 50% of the parking. So 100 people on the island, well, isn't a lot, but 50 cars out of what we think we're gonna have, that does restrict the public,
You
so.
get to reserve those 50 spots? We have 50
That's
people.
what we were getting at more with this parking restrictions, where it says where is parking lot. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but I remember when we had that conversation, it was more like, at what point do you say, yes, you can have this event, but you're only allocated
So
Even if
that brings,
spaces?
I think we had a couple, the parking with the
Shuttle.
shuttle.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because if you're gonna do 100, you gotta say, okay, what's gonna trigger, like, that you gotta have a shuttle bus?
Right.
That you're
I
gonna
think
bring
that's what we
people,
were
so-
getting at by the parking restrictions.
And I think we know that we haven't even bid the drawings that we looked at a couple meetings ago yet, so it's not gonna be
We don't even
anytime.
have drawings.
So we don't even have drawings, yeah. So we just have sketches, right, of what might happen. So we know that that is not happening anytime really
Right.
soon. So,
Maybe that, actually, I think the next 5 on the first page could be number 2s. The parking, the noise, the eligibility, cleanup and deposits are a little bit closer to, we've decided to do this. It's almost like a modification of the overall decision. Okay, we're gonna allow this
Right.
kind of thing. All right, so what kind of noise and who can, apply? Those are, I think, a subset of, after we create the initial idea of what kind of things could go on there, how frequently and how large the size.
Right.
I'm trying to make the box a little bit smaller.
Please.
So if a family wants to hold a picnic, a family of 5, nobody's gonna question them just showing up, not having an event permit. A larger family unit or a neighborhood that decides to meet in their 20 people, is that an event or is that just people having a picnic on the island? What
I
is it?
think.
We
I think-
define it as 20,
Is it by number of people?
by number of
defines it?
people, 20. But part of it is really where people want exclusivity, practically speaking. So practically speaking, a bunch of people that are all kind of want to get together on a Friday night, show up down at Pear Tree, and they're all hanging out at the picnic tables. Can't really stop that, but if somebody wants those picnic tables for an event, like there's a family in town who reserves it, I don't know if it's Memorial Day, 4th of July or something, every year that like they want it, you want those tables in advance, 20 more people, then you go through the whole
Right.
permit process, and then it even says the rules, they need to, show up that day, put up a sign, this space is reserved, or whatever. But, I mean, yeah, you're right, practically speaking, if people kind of all get together, and especially in the day of text messages, and, people are at Great Island, and they, their friends, hey, it's a beautiful day, we're having a picnic, come on over. That's kind of informal, but there's no expectation, well, these tables are reserved for us, or whatever. It's just kind of who's there. Because, I mean, practically speaking,
Right. And I think the town has a decent, or the citizenry has a decent history of observing that. I know that on some of the courts, when there's times when the courts can be reserved, but other people are playing there, but like you show up, you're like, oh, I've actually reserved this court. People are usually very good about, scooting off. I would expect they would have this same mentality if, picnic areas on the island or
Right.
Weed or Pear Tree or wherever.
yeah. And when we went through, all the reservations we had for the last 3 years, the parks, I mean, a big number of them were sort of private party, birthday celebrations, Father's Day, anniversary, whatever, where people just want, like, we've got this particular space, we want to go, we want to set up, we want to decorate, we have this space. It was really a large proportion. Then we have sort of, the bigger events, like, we had Pride Day at Tilly on last Saturday, or last night with Darien Men's Association picnic was down in the picnic area at Wheat Beach, which is sort of an annual thing, maybe 150 people. But, the park was still going on. People were playing tennis, people were on the beach, and everybody coexisted very nicely.
So I think that then to address then your very good point is that one of the things for early consideration is what size of people for an organized event are we going to require permitting? And maybe we will decide rather quickly, 20 is the number, 20 works, seems, but that would be the way to kind of reduce the box if we set that definition early. How many people are we going to make required to have apply for a permit?
I would add to that an either or, which is some number, 20, or they want to reserve a specific
Specific
location.
area or specific tables or whatever.
Good point.
Yeah.
Wait, so if I want to reserve a specific area and there are only 10 of, okay, I
It would
see.
require a permit, if you want to make sure that that spot's
Right,
available for you.
Right, and I guess that would be another thing to think about when we think about location is how many spaces on the island do we want to open this up to? And what's our kind of our goal? What do we think Great Island, what do we think our residents want from this, right? I mean, are people happy with the events that they're having? Do you see that a big group will suddenly want to go from Weed to Great Island?
I hope you're not gonna take all my revenue
Yeah,
away.
okay, okay, all right.
But yeah, some will, just, you know,
Just because it is Great Island, at least
Yeah.
for the first few years.
yeah, something new and different or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so going back to this, did we say the first 5?
Yes, first
Okay.
5s are number
So,
ones.
so type of event, maximum size, frequency, hours, location on the island, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that's 5.
And I happen to agree with Mike that the next 5 are more, if we're gonna talk about 10 of them, are more important than the back page, which are kind of like, as a result of the first 10 that we discussed, you're going to be able to get through the other ones relatively quickly, I think,
Okay.
Okay, so,
Should we
as far as priority.
include shuttle in the top 10, though?
Yeah, I think parking
Yeah.
restrictions / shuttle
Yeah.
requirements should go together.
and we can, I mean, so we could do the whole front page, we could put that in our tier 1. I think amplified sound, we're already gonna cover that. And shuttle we're gonna move over to 1.
What about the event cap or conflict calendar? Should there be another number of events?
Yeah,
per
that,
month
you
or
know, though, I
season?
might have kind of duped that, because that's frequency too,
Okay.
right?
Well, they could be combined as well.
Or
Right.
just combine that.
Right.
And to Mike's point a little bit about having flexibility on changing the rules, is our thought is that we want to cover every possible event as flexible as it is from here to eternity, or are we looking at early access events? What are we going to allow for the next year, or the next year and a half, or whatever it is, through the end of next summer maybe?
Yeah.
Which we could be much more restrictive for these first couple of years in the test period than we would be in the long term maybe.
And you know, when you think about the construction that's gonna happen, it will limit our residents' access already, right? So then, do we want to have, say it is 9 months, do we want to have every one of those weekends? How many of those weekends? How many weekends are in 9 months?
Well, remembering that for the next year, I think through next
Yeah,
year, nobody's gonna be able to drive on the island. Parking's a
right,
non-issue
right,
for the next 2 years anyway, so,
right.
but for consideration as well.
Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, until the construction's done, I don't see people are gonna be reserving it a lot, because if you're having some kind of event, you're presumably bringing food and decorations, and there's not gonna be a physical way to get all that stuff there.
That's-
People can't
that's
drive on
not-
the island.
Oh, because you can't drive on, you're saying?
Because you can't
Yeah,
drive on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I was gonna say, the construction, remember, is only up to the traffic circle, which is never an active area anyway for anybody. They're just walking through that area.
Right.
So they won't be disturbed by the construction. They'll
right, I'm just saying, practically
walk through.
speaking, if you can only walk on,
Logistics.
Yeah, just consider it the
Logistic,
same
yeah.
as today.
Yeah, you're not,
Undisturbed, you got the same problem. You gotta get your stuff
You-
into the site.
there's just too much stuff.
Which does bring up the issue of would deliveries be allowed?
Right.
And then then they take the SUV or the pickup truck out after they drop everything off.
That'd be
I mean,
tough during the
theoretically,
construction
you
period.
could have somebody that wants to do a party of 50 people on a Saturday, like early evening, let's say, and if we say that you need a shuttle, they could pass over that, the 23A under construction essentially, and their caterer or whatever could have come in and set up tables and chairs, and then they get shuttled out. I mean, theoretically, that could
Right.
be a scenario.
That's my question,
I guess it's an overarching theme that, as we look at these, we'll consider what we anticipate the site conditions to be in the, in the near term. I mean, that's a consideration in terms of what events and size that we look at. To your point, you anticipate that it's a weekend, so they're not going to be working on the road. So we'll have to think about creating the ability for someone to shuttle people and food items on and on and off.
I think it's fair to say we'd probably say no private vehicles on the island until we have a parking lot for said private vehicles. So I think we
yeah.
would.
Well, to drop things off or to park there? I mean.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that we'd have to but certainly not to park there. But maybe,
Right.
yes, if you are doing a potluck thing with 5 families and you've decided to bring food in and somehow we decide, okay, yeah, you can go in, set that up with your tables, and then when you bring your group, you're gonna have to rent a van because you're gonna have you're gonna be allowed to bring one in, once in and once out or
Yeah,
something.
Maybe we should also think about like the status of our roads and how safe they are to actually go over right now. And if people were dropping things off, like, maybe this is something we get a little bit of input from Reed on, like, or Ed. Like Ed, if people did want to drop things off, does that make sense as far as a turnaround and the road conditions?
I mean, the roads aren't in bad shape. I know there's a facility in Stamford that does a little bit of that, where you can drop off right at the entrance to the park, but you're not allowed to take the vehicles out there. And Cove Island is a perfect example where
Right.
you could take it off, drop off the thing, and I've seen people with their wagons taking the
Right.
kids' stuff, things like that. And
A dolly
and
or a
they
wagon.
also have a shuttle that goes around there too.
Right.
So it's kind of it keeps, like you said, keeps the private vehicles off. And only the gentleman with the license to manage that place down there is allowed the vehicle out there.
But I don't know if I read the contract right with the contractor, but it's, 12 feet wide, and it has to, like, emergency vehicles have to be able to get in and out. So I think it's probably passable for those weekend, we wouldn't be allowing them weekdays because from 4 to,
Right.
we're closing at dusk or, whatever the policy is, but, I mean, maybe we're not closing at dusk, I don't know, maybe we do.
Well, that would be a good, that's a good thing to just check on with the fire marshal, is what's their attitude on this if during construction, if they had a problem. Do you think they would?
Having functions out there,
Yeah,
I think I won't answer for Bobby.
right, okay,
But I think he'd have some concern
right,
with regards to access there all the time, yeah.
right, okay,
The
And
other
I don't
thing-
know if it could be addressed,
Right.
he would want to think about something like that.
right,
If we're gonna be offering events, there's no bathrooms.
right.
They'd
I'm
have to
just
bring their
personally
own.
not
Yeah.
seeing, when the road's under construction, it's very difficult to get all the stuff for your event in, and there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. I'm just not seeing this as a big seller this
How
summer.
many porta sands we have there?
Uh,
2? Just
No,
one?
we have two.
Where-
We have two. No, we have two.
Just- no.
One,
Okay.
just one?
Did you put another one out there?
I think-
Did another one in the private?
All right, so in terms of what we're doing right now, this sounds like a early item as opposed to as a 2 item. I mean, I'm hesitant to speak too deeply about the merits because we don't have a full group here now, and we're obviously going to be talking about this in a heavy manner. So we'll say that's a 1. And now we're on, I mean, I think insurance is down the road too, and it's
Right,
also
right.
like very fast. Alcohol policy, I think, is major, so I think that should be a 1. Are we going to let, do we let residents who are picnicking, have alcohol? And I really don't want to discuss the merits of that now, but it's obviously something that's consistent with early activation, so we should probably talk about that sooner than later.
Well, Mike, I hope that we'll talk about the first group next week, and then
Right.
the second group after our meeting on the
Yeah,
25th.
that's all 1 and 2 means is
Yeah,
Right.
a
yeah.
week apart.
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
a year.
exactly. So it should, really, it's more like, does the shuttle fit better with the parking?
Right. Okay.
But I liked your earlier kind of thought that we should think about what kind of activities we want to have out there, and and start with that, and what the impact is on our residents and on the neighbors, right? Okay, so going back to, sorry, is the whole first page 1? Did we decide that? And adding a couple from the back, the
Yeah.
shuttle?
The event cap and,
Yeah.
to the frequency and the shuttle to the parking with that,
Yep.
I think the front page
Makes
covers what
sense.
we can cover, and
Right.
just based on this one discussion, I'm not sure we can make it through all 10 of them.
Right. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
but it goes back to what Mike said, is that, we're not chiseling these in stone. This is our first crack at it, and there'll be a lot of lessons learned.
Right. But again, yeah, and our experience has been, in these meetings, everybody's intellectual capacities tend to unwind after about, 90 minutes. So I think, we really want to be able to have tight, robust conversations about these
Exactly.
major
Yeah.
items.
But there's really 3 phases to this decision-making, which I think come up with 3 different answers to each of these categories, which is 23A is not available, after 23A is done, but parking's not available, after parking's done, and then the entire island is accessible. So the answer for the entire island being available or accessible isn't gonna apply for the first 2 phases.
Right, which could be for a few years,
But
yeah.
and that begs to question the drawings that we don't have for the parking, with this contractor, not that, obviously we have to bid the parking piece separately, but if the current contractor happens to be interested in continuing on to do some more of that work on the island, should we get that bid sooner than later so that if they can, let's say that particular contractor gets aggressive on the bid, wins the bid, and now it can apply an economy of scale, saying, hey, I'm already there. I won this bid.
Right.
Now they're bidding this next piece, which is contiguous work. It's right from the circle to the area. I think we should probably try to get these drawings done, like not waste any time.
Right. So one way to think about this, Dan, to what you were saying, and I totally agree, Bruce, is maybe we just think about the early access phase, the 23A running into the early access phase, and kind of think about like construction, either at 23 or in that other area and kind of group that as one, and then when there is no construction. What do you think about that? So
You-
two,
Yeah, that's the start, right.
okay, okay. Okay, so, Craig?
Minor point.
Oh, Craig,
Craig Flaherty for the record.
do you have to be up here?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I'll leave
yeah.
it for him when the mics will be up. In order to get all the special permits, right, you'll need to have the final version, everything's done, what are the guidelines, because that'll feed into your special permit for P&Z.
Okay.
And if we're gonna get the parking approved, we gotta go to P&Z, so that needs to be set along with those parking drawings.
So what I'm hearing is we need to have this done when we go for the
special
parking?
permit. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's good to know. Okay, that means we need to keep moving the ball down the field, guys. All right, so I think we're set on what we want to cover for the next meeting. And so we want to know what other town properties are doing. And then if there's any guidance, I think from, like from Jen Fava or from Jen Charneski, our town administrator, I think we incorporate that. So I think, and then we'll come back here, and when we come back next week, I will ask you to have your comments ready on these 10 items, what you're thinking. So between now and then, we need to get 1 and 2 done. So Jeff, do you need help, or can you handle this?
Are you talking about putting this into this?
Yeah.
I would like some help with that.
Okay.
if,
Okay, so that's kind of
Anybody's
like
amenable.
a Excel sheet, right? So who would like to help Jeff on this? That's kind of good at the tech side of that. Mike?
Yeah, you lost me at good at the tech side of that.
Okay.
So
Does that help us?
what are we doing?
We're putting the answers to all these categories for each of the examples that we have. And I'm wondering if that helps us.
You don't think it does?
Well, do we need it? I mean, I'm willing to give my own opinion, having read it, but
Okay.
having it all in,
I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible, but I
Yeah.
recognize I'm not making it simple for Jeff.
Well, my problem with it is, I don't know that we need all this text. This is not a complete list of all the rules, but the ones
You know what?
that we've been talking about, but.
I'll help you. I'll
Okay.
help you. We'll
All
get it
right.
done. We'll get it done.
I would say I would have done it, but I have just a big work
Yeah.
week next week.
You're right. I have nothing going on.
If,
Well, you just raised your hand.
No, I want to move the ball down the field, so Jeff and I
yeah,
will
I mean,
work
I
on
think
this.
that maybe some selective
Yes.
editing that you
Very
could help me with,
selective.
because I don't want to, there's something important, I don't want to say, oh, I don't think we need that, and then it turns out to be the,
Right,
so yeah, I'll work with you on that.
okay. All right, so we'll get that to you, to the committee. Today's Thursday? We're meeting on Wednesday, so we will work to get this to you by Monday. What do you think, Jeff? Tuesday? Tuesday. We're giving you a worksheet, so you'll have all night Tuesday to take a look and all day Wednesday to take a look. That should be enough time, right?
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Okay,
plus during the meeting.
all right. What was that?
Nothing.
I just said plus during the meeting, but,
Yeah,
I look at something like ours, I don't really want to know what Waveney does with their hours. We should be able to make our own decision about what we want to do
Right.
at Great Island. So,
right. Okay.
trying to say
Yeah,
that-
you know what, I think what we'll do is, we won't include Waveney on this, but what we'll do is we'll send out, if we can find, I think Kip was working hard to get a little bit more information from Waveney House, et cetera, and.
Yeah, some of the stuff is in their regs and some Reed had gotten from their meeting, but the Waveney House, I reached out by phone and email, and the website, you basically got to contact them about your interest for the mix, so that none of these details that I saw are on there,
Available?
so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any more thoughts on this? Okay. Next item is, what's next? Merchandise. Did that. Logo merchandise. So, yes. So, last week I forgot to share this, or last meeting. So here, you know what, I'll hold them up, and then I will send them around so you can get a feel on the quality. So here's one idea. Beautiful shade of blue, perfect for you. Okay, pass that around. Here's another one. Is this the same?
Same thing, different
Yeah,
color.
same thing, different color. No, not for you. Yes, for you. That'll look good on you. And then
Perfect
here's
stocking stuffers,
here's another option.
before you know it.
And here's the back. And Jeff, I think that would look good on you. I'm not giving these out, because these
Oh.
are not, they're not mine to give. I'm just suggesting that you might want to think about those when you're placing your order. And here's another one,
I like that
which
one.
I think is really nice. I think this would be perfect for Craig. Right? It's very simple on the back. Understated. So, Kip isn't here tonight, but he did send me an email. So let me just see what he said. He's going to send a link around.
I think he did, didn't he, last week?
Yeah.
And there's just a couple things about the website is not, the rendering on the website does not exactly match what we're
Right.
seeing here right now.
Right.
Jeremy, the guy that we're working with at the vendor, is fixing that. So
Okay.
very soon,
Okay.
probably by tomorrow, they should be in sync.
Okay, that's great. And Bruce, I forgot that you were thank you. You were also working
That's
really
okay.
hard on this.
I haven't been working that hard on it. Kip's been doing the heavy lifting.
Okay.
I've been involved, and on the thread, but really Kip has been doing the majority of the work.
Yes, I was wondering, because these I saw, these options weren't on the website, so I wasn't sure if, but they will be, is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing? Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Okay, so you know what, we should have something solid again for us on this as far as when you can place your order, and, yes,
Can we make comments?
yeah, speak.
I think the 06820 is pretentious, and
I love it,
you like it?
yeah,
Okay.
but, that's me.
And I think we've said this at a previous meeting, there's gonna be a limited offering by design at the beginning, just because we don't the G that we used during the master planning, like that Reed came up with stuff. I don't think we as a committee, we as a town know yet exactly what we want the logo to be and stuff like that. So we haven't created, and then also just as far as some things have to be created in advance versus some things can be created on demand, because they're embroidered. But silk screened items that are truly silk screened have to be done. Well, ideally, you're doing them in advance. There's this other technology which is the heat transfer, but then they typically don't look quite as sharp and stay as vibrant over time and washings and things like that. So we decided to kind of start slow, and that there'll be a mug, and that there'll be a couple T-shirts and a quarter zip and a few things. It won't be Spartan, but it'll
Hats,
Yeah, hats.
For us small people.
hats. Yeah,
So
they'll have a trucker hat and a traditional hat.
Well, I think to Dan's point, maybe we offer some without the zip code. right? There
Well, I
must
saw
be.
one of them.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
there's a good
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not on everything.
Yeah.
But I think as far as the logo goes, we invested pretty heavily with a firm that came up with the logo, so I'm a little reluctant to revisit that unless there is a real displeasure.
Well, even Reed has said that's not the logo. Like Reed's put a bird up. Like when we worked with Ming on this, like there's a bird, there's the G,
What's that thing in the back of the one sweatshirt,
where it says Great Adventures.
Yeah, Great Adventures.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure.
Yes, I
it's-
don't love that.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
love that either.
So, and even the bird, I mean, it's, so we're not, again, I mean, why is it not an eagle? You know, it's like, so, I mean, guys, we're just not there.
Right.
We're just not there. I mean, the committee never voted on anything as to like what the logo is for the thing. I think it's a cool logo, it's a modern logo. It was taken out of the concept of the sections, like the pieces of the pie essentially of the island, and then they rotated them around and made it into a G, which is cool and certainly was cool as part of the process that we were in of trying to evaluate the island and understand it through the master planning process. Maybe it'll last forever, I don't know. But we have some iconic things like the entry gates. We have quite a few things that we could put into the hopper for the decision of what goes on our gear offering, our merch, I guess is what the
Yeah.
kids call it.
Well, maybe we should solidify that.
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah,
what you're
absolutely.
saying. And if, during the week, if you could get Hildebrand's read on what we're saying about,
right.
Oh,
even their opinion was this wasn't the permanent one. I
Yeah,
don't know
let's
whether
find
it's
that
true.
out,
And-
because I don't think we want to change horses in midstream.
Yeah.
If this is going to be our look,
I could
then
tell
we
you.
should be consistent.
The most important comment, actually, the most important item I forgot to say. Kip and I advised Jeremy to not put a logo on the majority of the items. So they're speaking for themselves in a lot of cases where it's just block lettering, like, and it says Great Island, Darien. Like on the hat, it just says Great Island, Darien. And it doesn't have a logo.
Okay.
And so.
So those
be-
are no-brainers.
Because, and we said
Who
that
picked the font?
to him.
Even the font's important, right?
Yeah. So we basically told him on most of the items, we're not having a logo yet. It's just early. We're saying Great Island, people want to rep Great Island, and they're like, okay, great, I got a Great Island hat. But, so,
Well,
yeah.
that's something I think to discuss at the committee, is to see, and maybe we have a couple of trial and see what people buy, right?
Yep.
If people like the logo, or if people like, I mean, this is actually an important bird, the egret for the island, not as important as the eagle, absolutely, but still in its own right. Okay, so, more to come on that,
Yes.
right? So what do you think you need from us? You want us to take a look at the website and,
Yeah, just look at the website, and this stuff can be very easily changed.
okay,
It's definitely not written in stone.
okay. So maybe everybody comes back with 3 things that they really like on the website, and we'll see what overlaps, okay?
Should discount mine next to, Excel sheets, creative things that look well.
What good are you?
Really not.
What are you
We're
good at?
recording this, right? Town's watching.
It's just one step below spreadsheets is yeah.
Well, you had great comments for the guidelines.
Well, thank
Great, yeah, great thinking. That's the way your mind rolls, which is great. Okay, next item is the minutes. Review minutes for the May 28th meeting. So any edits, corrections, changes?
I was okay with it.
They look fine.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for May 28th? Mike moves. Bruce seconds. All in favor? Okay, terrific, unanimous. Okay, meeting adjourned.
That's a record.
Motion
That's a
to-
record.
Yes.